Well, hi, Wendy. I want to welcome you to the Beat Your Anxiety Summit. And I've been, really getting familiar with all your work. And I think it's so important, this topic. And, it's kind of new. I feel like a lot of this information is kind of new when it comes to toxic relationships and, this word narcissism and narcissist that's kind of thrown around today. And, everybody's a narcissist today. And we get to clear that up. But Wendy, can you tell us more about yourself, why you do the work that you do, and who you are?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, Lydia. It's such a pleasure to be with you. And hello to everyone listening. Um, I've been working with narcissistic individuals for about 30 years in my treatment room. I do a lot of teaching of therapists who are trying to work with this challenging population. And and I do a lot of consulting for those who are suffering with the effects of living with or growing up with someone who has traits of narcissism. It is a big word. It's everywhere. It's grown and kind of doubled and tripled in size over the years. And the truth is, not everyone is a narcissist or has narcissistic personality disorder because they are at times a bit self-absorbed or at times a bit more controlling. I mean, we can all find ourselves at times with some of those traits, but it really, for it to be a bona fide pathology, if you will, or a real syndrome, meaning a bigger problem in personality, it would have to contain more elements. I write about that in my book, and I name some of those traits. And we look at it along a spectrum, so it's a spectrum of frequency, numbers of traits, how often does it get activated, how intense is it when it gets activated, meaning what? Everything from the kind of obnoxious show off to the martyr who's always the biggest extraordinary suffering victim, to the, in your face, very controlling, entitled, arrogant, non-remorseful, non-empathic, power mongering type of individual with a high sense of I make the rules, I break the rules. Mm-hmm. So lots of traits and different levels of intensity and frequency along a spectrum.
I'm so glad, Wendy, that you brought up this type of person who's like, look at me, I'm a victim. And, I know these are a lot of individuals that come in and need help from me as a hypnotist. And this has also been my story, was like, I felt like I wasn't allowed to speak up. Like I was going to be in trouble for having my own desires and needs and wants. But, I noticed in the end, it was just me making myself wrong for having these things. And of course, my environment was backing that up.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. There's whether it's more covert, we sometimes think of that as a covert or vulnerable kind of narcissism. And why is the word narcissism in there? Well, mostly because it's very self-focused. That doesn't make it bad. That doesn't make it deviant. When I work with someone who has this kind of, if you will, victimish type of focus, my pain is the greatest pain, my suffering is the biggest suffering, there's a cry inside for help me, see me, know me, I'm hurting underneath that. But there's no pathway, as you just said very nicely. There's no given pathway, no permission to be able to really ask for that help in a vulnerable way, because it was prohibited somewhere in the once upon a time. And so it comes out in a more kind of dramatic way or in a victimized way, and which is a burden to carry for anyone, So although it can be annoying to others in their lives, there's still a pain and there's a hurt that lies deep beneath that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know one of the biggest fears that keep coming up for this group, I've noticed, and including myself, was like, well, what if I disappoint the other person, or what if the relationship ends or things blow up? And I know me personally, I actually found that not to be the case in the end. And while I'm not going to sit here and say the relationships won't change, because now once you start For those of you listening, and maybe you feel like you're not allowed to speak up, that once you start to do that, right, once you start to step into and really express your authentic self, now that's going to have sort of like a rippling, sort of a domino effect, right, throughout the rest of throughout that relationship anyway.
Well, that's the goal, right? Isn't it? I mean, always, we all want to be seen, we want to be heard, we want to be known for who we are. We want the most accurate representation of ourselves to be carried in the minds and hearts of those that matter.
Yeah.
And that's very difficult when you're either living with someone who's more on the arrogant, malignant, pathological side of narcissism, because they're horribly self-absorbed. And so it's very difficult to feel seen and known and heard and carried authentically in their minds and hearts. But it's just also difficult with others if you haven't figured out how to bring that voice to the forefront, how to find your voice, how to be the best representative of yourself that you can be. Either because it was forbidden, it was threatened, there's too much fear, there's shame, all of these obstacles that can get in the way of showing up as we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is so empowering when we can do that. There's something so steady and stabilizing and empowering, and that's the irony, because it can just be so scary and threatening to imagine just saying what's so.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of individuals watching, I know for me, I was like, what is this fantasy? Like, are you serious? Like, I can be in a place where it is safe. And, one thing I want to touch on here is, how do we know we're with an individual that really is just going to be a lost cause? Like, what is a true malignant, personality disorder, narcissistic type versus somebody who just has tendencies, and who has tendencies?
Yeah, I mean, people who have tendencies towards narcissism in a remarkable way, in a way that really makes it difficult to be in relationship with them. So whether they have strong traits or they have a full narcissistic personality disorder, you are with someone who, again, has a high degree of, arrogant, entitled behavior, a low degree of empathy and remorse and accountability for their own behaviors. I always say you can sort of diagnose this from your gut to some degree, not completely, right? Because our gut can get confused in time and space, but just one of the glaring factors is you start to feel erased. You start to feel invisible. You feel like, as I like to say, you can scrutinize narcissism based on a few things. Are they asking you any questions, and are they listening to your answers? Are they tapping into your enthusiasm, your passion, your joy, your sorrow, whatever it is that you're sharing and expressing? Or do they seem to be like ticking the box like an interviewer on a news broadcast who's just kind of doing the perfunctory thing, but not really engaged in knowing you?
Yeah.
Are they sharing anything vulnerable? Are they asking questions and able to receive and embrace your vulnerability? I mean, these are top tips for scrutinizing narcissism. What do you notice about yourself? Because there are certain people, and they're usually the narcissistic types, where we find ourselves shrinking. We shrink. We start apologizing. We start agreeing with things we don't really agree with. We start giving in to demands that we would otherwise say no and set limits with other people. We start sort of forfeiting our opinions and dreams and wishes and ideas and values because it doesn't match this larger than life person that's in front of us. We see ourselves, this is something I discovered in the early days of working with this population. I was so triggered and thought, who is this person, who's reacting this way? I am so activated by this personality type. And that sort of set the stage for my journey into figuring this out. But that's what happens when we're in the face of someone with narcissism, or we get competitive and we start, fighting back, and in ways that are exhausting and unnecessary because we don't have anything to defend, but we feel like we have to defend our position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Like you said so much in there that was like radiating and resonating me and my experience. I remember and for the audience, for those of you maybe who are listening and finding a lot of this very familiar, keep in mind, just because it's familiar doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's healthy, and also doesn't mean you have to live that way. And, I heard you say something earlier, is like, we don't know who we are. Like you said, who is this person? And if you are that person, maybe you feel like you're walking on eggshells and you're kind of you're over analyzing, am I saying this right? Or am I not saying, what if I do it like this? Like you're kind of editing yourself so that you're managing others' emotions and expectations. Well, your interpretation.
Yeah, no, that's beautifully said, Lydia. That's exactly what we're doing. And we're also trying to manage and address the internalized fear that we're carrying of, I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to be rejected. I don't want to be judged. I don't want to be abused. I don't want to be neglected. There's so many, consequences that we're fearing might happen if I don't submit, surrender, subjugate myself, sacrifice myself under this condition. And this is where we can find ourselves, because what's happening is we're getting triggered, and there's a vulnerable part of us. The familiar part of this is, it's usually something from our own once upon a time experience. There's usually something about this that's resonating, and it's like we've dropped back in time, and we're resorting to old coping styles that we used a long time ago that probably worked when you're little and powerless and you don't have many choices. But we don't have to do that anymore in our grown-up lives. We don't have to. We can use our voice and exercise our ideas and express our opinions and desires and wishes and dreams. And and some people won't like it, and oh well.
Yeah. I know that's a fear I hear come up with my clients. They're like, well, what if they get mad? And my reaction is, uh-oh. Like they might too, when things are going someone's way for so long, and it feels good to them, right? Like setting a boundary, especially if boundaries are new. And if you don't know what a boundary is, then it's time to contact Wendy. But,
they will get mad. They will get angry. If you're with a narcissist, they're likely to either just, they'll stomp off and slam the door. They'll give you the eye roll. They'll scoff, or they'll just get angry and they'll argue and they'll put you down and they'll demean you and they'll disparage you and they'll defend themselves and they'll get defiant. They do all those D words, right? Defensive, defiant. If you are sturdy in your skin, if your spine is straight, if your nervous system is stable, in control, if you are in that empowered mode, which is hard, it sounds great, but it's hard to do. It takes practice and rehearsal and really being with ourselves and blowing up like a volcano in front of you, not dangerously so, because obviously you have to do other things if it's not safe, but who's just, blowing off steam, having a temper tantrum or walking away, you're okay. Because you actually expect that to happen, but that doesn't mean you give up your voice, because the power, the work of being yourself and saying what's so, and confronting someone or holding them accountable or sharing your ideas when you're asked, or even when you're not asked, but because you want to share them, that's empowering. That's you listening to you, watching yourself with a prideful sense of, there I am, right? There I am. I'm right there. And the person over here who's getting noisy or going silent is doing exactly what we would expect them to do when we understand narcissism. That's what they do. So when you stop dancing, when you stop engaging and you stop taking the bait, you stand a much greater chance of having some influence over what they will do next. Not immediately, it's not magic. But you've already won when it comes to claiming and sharing your voice.
Wow. Like I feel like what you mentioned right here is missed for so many people, because we tend to go into that automatic place, especially if you're, recovering people pleaser and you struggle and you've always needed approval and permission from others. What we tend to do is go automatically defensive, and we automatically start to argue. And for those of you listening, like, did you hear what Wendy just said? Like, I almost wanted to repeat it, but being able to be in that calm place and not like you said, do the dance where your defenses go up, your shield goes up, you play that game because again, they expect you to go into that place. And when you don't, like I tell my clients, like it takes two people to play that game.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when you stop, I say, stop dancing, right? Change the steps. It's going to be awkward and clumsy. There will be all kinds of little misfires that are loud and soft there. But now you're sort of, an expression I always use with my clients is you're dropping new seeds in the soil, right? So yes, I do work with the narcissists because they come in because partners have said, I'm not doing this anymore. But I also work with partners and family members and try to show them that when you can have that steel rod, running through you, that's very solid. You don't have to be angry. You don't have to be roaring like a lion because, that can feel good sometimes, sure, but it's exhausting. And it's not the best representation of what you're really feeling and thinking and knowing in here. It's when you're here in this steady place where you can say, no, I'm not doing that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm done doing that. So we're going to the dark side right now. So I'm going to check out of this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Stay right here. How do you do that? Well, it does take, again, practice to be able to secure your most vulnerable self in your imagination in a very safe place. Because the little vulnerable, you can't do that. You just can't do that. You're too shaken. But the sturdy, healthy adult, you can do that.
Yeah.
And most people have the language. It's just that emotional backup and that nervous system that's stable and solid, and the platform is solid. It's hard. It takes rehearsal.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of practice and anticipating all the glitches, but you can get there.
Yeah. I like how you said that there's going to be stumbling blocks, and because I think what may be coming up for some viewers now is like, well, oh my gosh, what if I say the wrong thing and then they leave? Or what if I say, and it's like, well, like notice there is no wrong thing to say. It's just like you get to start to practice. Like it's not this black and white, all or nothing. You've done it right or you've done it wrong. But starting to, well, first of all, making a decision that you're not going to do this anymore, that you're not going to put up with it. And I feel like this step is also overlooked for so many people who are asking, well, how do I do that? How do I do that? I have personally found a lot of people haven't made the decision to do that.
Right. And out of fear, as you point out, that, it could end the relationship. So here's the thing. Narcissists don't typically leave relationships. They only leave if they've already got somebody who's waiting in the wings, or they leave because they've got a big, cadre of fans and followers. They've got this entourage. They don't leave because they suffer from deep loneliness and insecurity at the core. So they'll threaten to leave, but they rarely leave relationships. Yeah. It's partners who will ultimately make the leave, or at least will begin to try to envision with the narcissist the possibility that this is going to come to an end inevitably if we don't do something about this. So in the spirit of, if you're trying to protect your relationship and see if you can heal it, then you can use language like, in the spirit of protecting any possibility of us having a relationship, I'm not doing this anymore. I hope you'll join me, because otherwise it's an inevitable rupture for us down the road. And I think using strategies like empathic confrontation, which is something I will share with your audience in, my little free giveaway, which is a strategy that's designed to allow us to be the respectful humans that we are, but mostly respecting ourselves by saying, look, I know it's hard for you not to get your way. I know you're used to, you say we're doing this and I just give in and I agree. So I know this is a bit mind-boggling and upsetting and stirring that it's different, but you know what, in fairness to me, and in the way relationships work, because this isn't your corporate office where you're in charge, this is a relationship, it's going to be a little more give and take now. And that's going to be hard for you. Ooh, noise going on the other side. And it's just white noise for you now because you expect that. Mm-hmm. And your voice is not going to be shattered. You're going to say what's so, and then maybe you're going to walk in the other room
Mhm.
and take some deep breaths and go, good for me.
Yeah. And for those of you listening, like, this is really the key here to start to set you free. And for those of you who are maybe like, well, are fearing that speaking up, I find that it's a lot of times because we go to this extreme. Well, when I speak up, I get angry and I blow up and I do this. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, that's not the only option
Yeah,
here.
and that's a great point too. And you know what? You will. It's hard. We're human, right? There are times we will just escalate. You don't have to feel like, oh my God, I failed, or oh, this is impossible. Everybody, who wouldn't get angry and go crazy when you're dealing with a narcissist? Yeah, it's really hard. And so when you do escalate or you do cross that border, you can catch it. You can catch it because we all feel it. We know when we're in it. There's like somebody behind the scenes going, uh-oh. And you can say, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, time out. I'm going down the dark place. I've promised myself I'm not doing this anymore.
Mhm.
So I'm going to stop, take a pause, take a breath, close your eyes, bring a little pressure right here, a little warmth, a little soothing rocking. These are all just nice ways to kind of restore your balance, get yourself back in check, and be able to then open your eyes and say, okay, something really important is going on because I escalated, you're escalating. There's an important message. We can't hear it because biologically we're not in a good place.
Mhm.
So let's try again in a few minutes, or let's try again tomorrow, or let's get some help for this.
Yeah. Like, I think what a lot of this population struggle, this demographic struggles with is really bringing out their inner authority, right? Because
Mhm.
I can already hear questions coming up like, well, I don't feel like I'm allowed to do that, or like I feel like I need permission from somebody. How can we start to move that inner authority back inside of ourselves? I mean, as a hypnotist, I already know it's there no matter what, but it can feel like we don't have that authority.
Yeah, you say inner authority, and I call it in schema therapy, which is the model I use, we call it the inner critic. So it's an internalized critic. Everybody has one of one size or shape or form. Some people, much more debilitating, paralyzing type of inner critic says, you're not allowed, you're not entitled, you need to keep your mouth shut, you need to watch, you're going to blow it, you're going to screw up. And, first identify who's the messenger. How did that message get internalized? Who taught me this? I've believed this for a long time. I've been humming this melody in my head without challenging it for a really long time. And usually it has an anchor that tracks back to somewhere else where we got this message. And, with help, we can look back and we can reframe, rescript those experiences. I don't mean just our thoughts, but really the experience, really feel what it's like to have encouragement. Sometimes the intention of the critic is actually to protect us, to preserve us, to promote us, but it comes out in harsh language that ends up paralyzing us and shutting us down. And so when we can grab the caring message, the good intention, and apply that in different language in our mind, then it allows us to begin to find our voice,
Yeah.
to express ourselves, to share our needs, to describe our disappointments, right? Then we start to feel what I call healthy entitlement to our own rights.
Yeah. I think a lot of this audience, and including myself, for those of you who don't know me, I lost my father when I was 11, like, to a brain tumor, and then my mom was kind of there intermittently, and so it was lost, right, but it was a bit more ambiguous on both sides of the family, and there's that anxiety, right, because now I feel like going forward, every person that I love is going to potentially leave and not come back. And I know that was the fear for me as a codependent and more of the covert narcissistic type. But, even then, I've been able to tap back into, whatever you want to call it, your inner critic, your inner authority, your inner
Yeah.
voice,
Yeah.
and retrain that.
Mhm.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That's the idea, is the imagination is the most powerful resource, one of the most powerful resources we have in our mind, in our brain. And it's the equivalent of how we remember. So we use the imagination, drawing on references. We can reorganize experiences in our mind that also flows through our body and our soul. So we can feel what it's like to know, in your example, Lydia, that I'm not alone. And because I suffered these terrible losses with all of this grief and probably had to grow up a little faster than you should have at that stage of life, that it doesn't mean this is a blueprint for living. It doesn't mean this is what I can expect from everyone out there in the world. Doesn't mean I have to stifle myself or freeze because if I move too fast or I say too much, something bad will happen, right? Because there's also those kinds of connections that are formed. So we reorganize it to be able to appreciate whatever grief or loss or pain or suffering we may have endured, and to bring a really compassionate, wrap an arm around that self in a compassionate way that's also encouraging us to be able to speak our truth, to
Mhm.
speak our mind.
Yeah.
But it's possible if we take advantage of that wonderful resource called the imagination. It's not to make it up or change reality. It's just to find accuracy and truth. It's like, you can't change the fact that your parent might have said to you, you were stupid. They said it, but that doesn't mean it was true.
Yeah.
It's just that we buy it for our whole life
Hmm.
and we don't challenge it.
Yeah. And this is, for those of you who know anything about hypnosis, this is hypnosis, right? This is like, some suggestion was given to you and then you take it in and then you ruminate and you build meanings
Yes.
around it. And now your behavior is changing. So this is happening in real time. Like, this is happening as you go throughout your life. Somebody may come up to you and give you a weird look. And I know for a lot of clients I work with who have fear of like public speaking or being judged by others, they focus a lot on like the facial expressions of other people and create meanings out of that. And it's just about that meaning that you take away, right?
Yeah.
Because we'll never know what the other person is thinking ever.
Right.
When we try to mind read. you know and this is a tool that never works.
Yes, that's true. That's right.
I know, like, I used to, I kind of poke a little fun like with my clients, is like, look, like, try and, what am I thinking right now? And I'm like, tell me what I'm thinking. They're like, I can't. Well, exactly. Like, no matter how hard you try to kind of bend yourself into a pretzel for someone else, right? You never in the end know what they really want or desire. And also, it's not your responsibility.
That's right. And
Right.
yet we do it. We can be at the mercy of our automatic
Mhm.
memory, the matchmaking system of the brain, which is constantly looking at faces. And without even realizing it, we are internalizing this idea that, ooh, you don't like what I said. Ooh, you're judging me. Uh-oh, I'm in trouble with you. Oh no, you're upset with me because you furrowed your brow a little bit. So we're always taking those cues and then responding as if there's a truth there, instead of asking questions or noticing, or even just pausing for a moment to see, when we can pay attention to what happens in our bodies, and how we're getting triggered and activated, we stand a much better chance of making sense out of what we're thinking and where that's coming from. This is just ever so important when you're in relationships with narcissistic people, because, yes, they can become predictable and there are certain patterns that we can anticipate, but we can't fix or change that. You can't change someone just like that. They often need a lot of professional help if they're willing to do it, to make those changes. But we can change what happens in here
Yeah.
just by becoming more mindful and attuned to, how it all gets activated inside of us, what
Mhm.
conclusions we draw upon, what coping styles we drop into. Like, there I go again. I just gave in when I really wanted to say no.
Yeah. Yes. Yep, exactly. And this awareness around, we can call this a habit, right? Like I have a habit of just staying quiet
Yeah. Yeah.
instead of speaking up. And it's just, I love this. It's just about whether you're working with Wendy, whether you're, working with a hypnotist or a counselor, or, doing Reiki work or whatever type of work you're doing. It really comes down to just building awareness, right, around catching yourself. And then I find that this just kind of auto corrects over time, because, for me, what became more painful was to say nothing versus saying something,
Yes,
you
exactly.
that
Yes.
flip, that switch flipped, not the
Yeah.
flip.
Yeah. Yep.
Good. Maybe this is resonating with some of you viewers, at what point, how painful, what's really more painful is staying quiet and suppressing yourself, and then having to hold on to that and be angry throughout your day and stuff that down, or to just make that utterance, right?
Yes. I think silence is best when you feel the irresistible, familiar urge to suddenly defend yourself when there's nothing to defend. That's a good time to go silent and just notice like that tension and that impulse, and see if you can get a little interference before the impulse takes over, where suddenly you're saying, but I didn't mean it like that. But I didn't say that. What I said was, you have nothing to defend. Don't waste energy on that defense. But Wendy, I want to be understood. And you deserve to be understood, but try to do it without defending yourself.
Yeah.
There's the challenge. There's the greatest challenge. How do you do it without defending yourself, especially to someone, like in the case of my population, who's narcissistic? Clearly I can understand why you might feel that I said that in a way that was critical, because I know that you have a sensitivity to feeling criticized. I know that's hard for you. And I know it's painful when of course you would be upset if you felt like I was being critical, but it's me, right? I'm your friend. there's no part of me, at the risk of sounding defensive. You can even put it out there as a preemptive strike. It's reminding you and reminding them, you're not going to defend yourself. At the risk of sounding defensive, I'm going to remind you that I'm your friend and not defend myself on this. So if I said it in a way that was offensive to you, of course I would feel badly about that. And of course I do if it was offensive. But there was no intention to criticize you.
Yeah.
Right. And that's just saying what's so. That's not me now going into it. But I really meant, and if you were really listening, you would have heard that I said this. No, you didn't. Yes, I did. No, you didn't. And it's a mess. Right.
Yeah.
You don't have to waste energy on that. There's another time to go silent. And when you're with a narcissist and they are ranting and raging, or just in their pompous oration of some type, it's a good time to go silent for a moment and let them hear kind of the reverberating echo of their voice, because they expect you to jump in, join the fight, give in, do whatever it is that you typically do in that pre-choreographed way of communicating. But when you take the silent step and you just let them hear it, I do it in the treatment room a lot. They'll say something like, "This is ridiculous," and I say nothing. I just kind of like look, and then they hear it.
Yeah.
They hear it. No room for, no, I didn't say that. They hear it, and they're able to say, all right, what? I'm a jerk.
Didn't
I
say
mean,
that.
wow, you're hearing a lot of stuff here in the silence, but no, you're not a jerk. You're not a jerk.
Yeah.
But you're pretty upset right now, and there must be something really important going on. So let's sort of figure out what that is.
Yeah. I love all of this style of communication, Wendy. Like I just feel different in my body. There's so much like acceptance and openness going on with this style of like empathic communication.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you mentioned compassion as well. And I know this can feel like for this audience, maybe a whole new language. And I know for me, it was like trying to learn a whole new language, but it can be done. And it's so much more effective.
It really is. It really is. And don't be confused for anyone listening. I know you understand this, Lydia, from your work, but empathy and compassion are really different. Mm-hmm. So when I say empathic confrontation, it's the best way to be able to lead yourself into an effective confrontation. But empathy is not feeling sorry for someone. Empathy is not compassion. Empathy, you can be in total disagreement with someone, not endorse their position, and still be empathic, meaning I can make sense out of what you're doing and saying. I get it. I get it that you grew up being told you can do whatever you want, say whatever you want, as long as you were the big prize winner in the family, as long as you got the trophies, and as long as you were successful, you could do whatever you want. I get it. But, and here comes the confrontation, right? So I get it is sort of saying, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to notice this, to fix this, and to change this. But it's not okay in our relationship. This is a two-way street.
Yep.
And I deserve respect. I'm not going to accept anything less than that.
Yeah.
Right? So empathy helps you to prepare, because it brings attention to the confrontation in a way that you can be heard. If you just start out with, what's wrong with you? Knock it off. You're just walking into ugliness. We know that. It just becomes ugly.
Yeah. And how much, for those of you watching, how much energy are you leaking out? And I know people show up into my office, especially a lot of women, because I know a lot of women, we're naturally, we want to nurture and we want to serve and we want to be there and help. And that's just a natural side to us. But then, again, there's people, you have people out there who see our vulnerabilities and take advantage of them. And then you have people out there who see our vulnerabilities and don't take advantage, that honor them. And that was something that I learned really late in life is, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to not be perfect. And that person who's not going to take advantage of you, that's the type of person like I could be in any type of relationship with. But, keep in mind, there are people out there. It's okay to have vulnerabilities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you don't want to walk into the lion's den either. So you're not going to walk in with your most raw emotion, your most dreadfully, unbearable hurt to someone who has absolutely demonstrated no capacity to be a comfort, to be a refuge, to be someone you can trust. And this is unfortunately true for so many, and maybe people even listening now who have lived with or are living with someone who's betrayed you and violated that trust. So you do learn how to kind of steel yourself, protect yourself, and find others that you can confide in. So there are times when we don't want to walk in, but you can always bring your narrator into the conversation. And your narrator is like an advocate who on your behalf can say to the person who's hurt you, or the person who's disappointed you, or the person who's not showing up so well, can say, I'm aware that I'm feeling very upset right now. And I'm aware that I really need some comfort and I need a friend to talk to. And I'm aware that I'm reluctant to share this with you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's tragic for me. That's tragic for our relationship. But I just wanted you to know that much. So you haven't shared a thing, but you've narrated the experience that you're having, and you've narrated your wish, and you've narrated probably the reality of where you are right now. And you've dropped the seeds in the soil again, right? Hoping for maybe a little harvest somewhere, but at least you've heard yourself tell the truth.
Yeah. And then, as we wrap up here, I know, I want to hear more from Wendy. I feel like I'm just transforming, just listening to you talk with all these new tools and these reframes and this energy. And, if you're struggling with this out there, if you're out there listening to this video, watching this video, and you're asking how, then check out Wendy's stuff. She's got a YouTube channel. She has a free gift for you all. If you want to learn more about this empathic communication or compassion, these are essential to healthy living, to a healthy mindset. Doesn't matter where you go. This is something that has to happen, along with boundaries, is also something that obviously, we're doing here. So Wendy, can you tell us about the free gift that you have and where they can go to find it? We'll also put the link below this video. So click to go get it, guys. Like, you may never hear this information again. Go get this.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, visit my website, disarmingthenarcissist.com. My third edition of my book is just out. It's got lots of this material in the content. So I invite you to have a look and share your feedback with me. But my website also has lots of goodies and lots of podcasts and resources that you can find there. The free gift will be including some of these tools. I'll do a quick, brief down and dirty on some of the tools of empathic confrontation, just continuing and a refresher of what I've talked about. I'll make that available on my website. I have to set that up for you, but you can also email me. So email me at wendy.beharry@gmail.com. My email is also on my website, so you can reach me there.
And the link is also below this video. So go check out her website, click the link below to go get it. Like I said, guys, this is such valuable content. You may never get, hear this phrase, empathic communication, ever again, but this is it. It doesn't matter how you phrase it. This type of communication, this, tapping into, being empathetic with yourself and being compassionate with yourself. And if you are asking how and you need this help, click the link below. Don't waste time. Get it today. This interview is only going to be available for 48 hours. So Wendy, you're such a wealth of information. You're such a gift to this world and to the summit. And I want to thank you for being here and for giving us your time with this amazing insight.
Oh, thank you, Lydia. I'm very touched by your warmth and your nice words and your wonderful questions today. It's been a delight to be with you. So pleasure is mine.
Thank you so much.